This video is sponsored by Skillshare. What do I think about the prices of cameras these days? Hi, my name is Cheng, a London-based professional photographer and filmmaker. Today's topic is a rather interesting one. Nothing about specs, nothing about capabilities or even formats, but about one thing, and the only thing that affects most photographers, and that is the price. Of course, this video isn't about justifying or defending prices set by the camera makers, but rather an advice on how we should view cameras as tools and evaluate their worth to you as photographers. To answer my own question, cameras are expensive today. We've seen camera prices shooting up faster than Elon Musk rockets to space. Well, may not be going up as quickly as our petrol and gas prices. But with each generation of camera going up by 20 to, in some cases, 30 to 40%, and that's a lot to ask for any of us ordinary consumers, even if I'm making money from photography. First, let's have a look at camera prices and why they are so bloody expensive. Well, I'm not involved in pricing cameras nor know much about the cost of R&D, materials and labor. But what I do know is that camera manufacturers are businesses. As much as we would like to see lower unit price on cameras, it is also a known fact that the entire camera industry have been suffering since Steve Jobs pushed out the first iPhone over a decade ago. Like I said before, the point-and-shoot cameras were the bread and butter of any consumer camera companies. And with that dead in the water, there is almost nothing that camera makers can do to keep themselves afloat, but to increase the profit margin in their bigger cameras. And to make matters worse, the percentage of people who will buy these bigger, more advanced cameras is very small. And because of the advances and convenience of modern smartphone cameras, the way they process the images by means of computational AI, some of the lower end of these enthusiast photographers have even given up using their cameras altogether and end up shooting with their smartphones instead. In short, the market is shrinking faster than the increase of human population. And this is the reason contributing to some of our beloved brands disappearing, and many continue to struggle as well. And don't forget that camera makers are also hit by other areas. Aside from shrinking markets, the cost of raw materials, labor and equipment in R&D, even logistics, the transportations are all going up at the same time. So, no, there is no solution to this trend, and prices will continue to go at an alarming rate. And in most cases, in my opinion, is that any new camera releases is literally pricing themselves out of any normal photographers. Many reviewers, even the big ones, say 2 or 3 grand for a camera body is a good price. But what they are referring to is the value of these cameras, and the value that they think is enough to justify the technologies behind it. And this by no means suggesting if this price is expensive or cheap. Gear is obviously important, because you can't take a photograph without a camera or lens. But if you want to learn more about the different aspects of photography, there are many resources online, and one of them is my go-to when I need to find some structured and well-presented content. And this is today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning platform where you can find tons of high-quality material so you can learn new skills or further your existing knowledge. Even as a professional myself, I need to keep up with the latest trends and upgrade my skills for tomorrow's projects. And I recently got a few new inspirations from my good friend Dan Rubin's travel photography class. It's fun, relaxed and well presented. And this is the same across all classes inside Skillshare. So if you want to learn something in photography or even for your well-being, there's always a class in Skillshare. Skillshare is offering the first 1,000 subscribers for a 1-month free trial by clicking the link in my video description below. So you can start exploring this huge library to your heart's content and boost your creative juice, all at the comfort on your sofa, bed or even toilet when you're taking a little break from work. Now, let's continue our discussion about prices on gear, or more precisely, the value you see in cameras. To many, photography is a hobby. And by the way, I'm focusing on photographers and not gearheads. No offense there, and I know a lot of people love buying gear. but I'm speaking to those who love image making. And even someone like me, a photographer who makes money from photography, will think hard, very hard, before we want to part our hard-earned cash for a new camera that essentially does the same thing as the one I already have. So, to buy or not to buy a new photography equipment is solely down to how you value them. It makes an easier case for those die-hard photographers who rely on the camera's performance to do their jobs, to earn their living. But for the generalist, occasional hobbyist, unless you can afford whatever numbers on that little tag on the camera body, it's easier and less painful to focus on their craft and mastering their skills and techniques. A little reminder that Yoshihisa Maitani revolutionized the industry by making photography affordable and accessible to literally everyone who was interested in making images, from casual shooters to professionals. And he did that by making half-frame cameras, essentially half the cost of film purchase and development, and by making the camera smaller in a way to reduce the cost of material, yet without sacrificing features and performance. These may seem small things nowadays, but it was huge for not only Olympus but also the entire camera industry. Giving ordinary access to photography tools like that was unprecedented. And we've long obsessed about creating stunning images, and if this is still what you want, we now have many ways to capture them than ever before. But one thing remains: accessibility. And this is even more obvious in today's digital market. With top-end digital cameras going for over 5,000, if not more, body only, this is certainly not cheap. So you have to evaluate that, will this camera help you get better images in a more contextual and aesthetic terms? Will this camera capture something that you absolutely cannot do with your current gear? And the value I'm talking about is that if the answers to all these questions are yes, then this camera is value for money. It's worth every single penny. And for many who complain about camera prices, especially new models, I believe they misunderstand the concept of these values. And just to say that, including myself, everyone wants to have everything for next to nothing. It's natural and it's human nature. But considering that if you value what camera makers do to us, but keep pushing the boundaries and making these fantastic tools for us to create stunning images, you should remember that they too need to survive and thrive before they can continue to innovate. I am a photographer in the end, so I'm more envious when I see stunning photographs than seeing someone holding a more advanced and more expensive cameras. I'm more excited to see the power of photography than the power of processor or the sensor. And I'm definitely more determined to get more quality photographs than more megapixels. Finally, if you wonder, I have upgraded to OM System's new OM1, the one that I'm filming right now. I value it as a tool that helps me achieve my jobs better than my previous EM1 Mark III. The biggest upgrade to me though is actually the new EVF and screen, as my eyesight is definitely not as good as 2 years ago. I am increasingly finding it difficult to assure myself if I have nailed the shot or not. So the OM1 is more a necessity upgrade than anything else. And other things are pretty cool, the new advancements are awesome, but they are simply icing on the cake. So my question to you is, what do you value in photography? And how do you value your cameras or your next purchase? I know it's not an easy task to ask, but dig deep, you'll start to see and understand what I was talking about in this video. If there's one thing that I have to say in today's camera industry, Micro Four Thirds is not forgotten. It is back, and it will continue to give photographers another option to access photography in a more affordable fashion, even with today's prices. And this brings the end of today's vlog, and you know what to do now. Thumb if you enjoyed it, and sub if you want to stay in touch with all things photography and filmmaking. Peace. Oi, you, stop it, man. And one who relies on the performance of the camera to do their jobs, to earn their living. Oh, I cannot believe that bloody goose here. It just keeps screaming. Jesus.